ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930 present The Drive. Brought to you by Huntington Federal Savings Bank. Local then, local now. Member FDIC.
Welcome into the Thursday, September 12th edition. Your drive begins now on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. You can join the program by calling the Miller Lite phone lines at 877-420-TALK. That is 877-420-8255. Miller Lite holds true, great taste, only 96 calories. It is the original light beer. You can also find me on Twitter at Paul Swann. Shows on Facebook by searching The Drive with Paul Swann. Now that you got all of that in your mind, you know where to go on social media. Here's what we got coming up today on the program. Yesterday, we talked about Ohio Bobcat football with Rob Cornelius. He is the color analyst on the Ohio Sports Network. Guess what? We've got Jason Arkley from the Athens Messenger joining us here in a few short minutes, and we're going to continue that conversation as we preview Marshall and Ohio, talk a little bit about this series, battle for the bell, two regional rivals. Is this really a rivalry? Is this thing going to ramp back up? We're going to get excited to see Ohio coming into Jones C. Edwards Stadium. I think so. The series, in so many ways, has belonged to Marshall as of late, and so many ways it's belonged to Frank Solich as of late. Last time these two teams met, Marshall fell to Ohio 21-10. That was back on September 12th. 2015. So the Thundering Herd, sure, they enjoy 8 of the last 9 meetings in Huntington, and sure, they enjoy 13 of the last 19 matchups overall, but Ohio's been chipping away and stopping that trend. Of course, as we mentioned yesterday, 60th all-time meeting between these two teams. 60th. This is the opponent that Marshall has faced the most. But yet they don't play each other every year. That's the only bad thing about it, but we're going to talk about that later on with Jason. And, of course, we'll get your phone calls in. As I mentioned, 877-420-TALK, 877-420-8255. Now, what's happening today? Well, yesterday was baseball. We were talking with Marshall Athletic Director Mike Hamrick about the fact that Thundering Herd, now they have ownership of the Flint Group Pigments property, and so that means they can get everything going. They've got possession of it. The Herd Rises campaign officially begins, and that's the major fundraising effort to make sure that Marshall can put together the funds to build a baseball park. So we talked about that yesterday. Well, we're going to follow it up with Jeff Wagner today because fall baseball schedule is out. Now, we kind of knew this already because we've got an inside source at Appalachian Power Park. The Herd have 2 matchups with the Mountaineers, and they've got an exhibition with the Toronto Mets. The first game against West Virginia is going to take place 6:30 p.m. on September 27th at Appalachian Power Park in Charleston. The other is going to take place in Morgantown October 4th with the same start time. The exhibition against the Mets going to be on October 17th at YMCA Kennedy Center, Route 2. Time yet to be set. And so early opportunity to see some Herd baseball as fall ball getting underway. Here's what Coach said in the release. He said it's a great time to be able to see the development of our players as prepare for the 2020 season. And he also said it's exciting to be able to play 2 games against West Virginia and an exhibition game with Toronto Mets as they get a picture of what the team's going to look like in the spring. So that's paraphrasing what he said. Baseball got some aspirations here. You know why? Because they finished 29-28. That's not terrible. They ended the season with an appearance at the 2019 Conference USA Championship in Biloxi, Mississippi. They got a 6-4 victory over third-seeded Louisiana Tech in the opening game of the tournament, so there's some progress there. Did not lose a series at home during the 2019 campaign. They had a 17-7 record at the Kennedy Center, and they just lost 4 home Conference USA games, including a series sweep of Rice in the final 3 games of the regular season. So guess what? What if Marshall had a world-class baseball facility? World-class college baseball facility. Everything they possibly want, need for now and in the future right there on campus. Don't have to drive out to Route 2. You don't have to drive out to any other ballpark that has hosted the Herd in, I don't know, the last 50 years or so. You don't have to do that anymore. What if they've got that ballpark ready to go and Herd Baseball wins more? All of a sudden, Marshall has potential here to be possibly a baseball school. Keep that in mind. I mean, wouldn't that be cool? I think it'd be great, to be honest. I mean, Marshall's putting the time, energy, and resources and effort into the baseball facility to make sure that a program that has gone without for so long finally gets the facility that it deserves. To be honest, I applaud this administration. I applaud the city leaders for finally getting it done. Just getting it done. Not paying lip service to it. Just here's how we need to make it happen and make it happen. So I tip my cap off to everyone who made that happen. But fall ball, getting us closer to the start of real baseball for the Thundering Herd, and get that fundraising going. Keep baseball top of mind. I mean, that's something that we should all be striving for. Just because quality facilities are really important for the longevity of the program. As I mentioned yesterday, the fact alone that baseball park is going to be the cornerstone, I believe, of a serious revitalization of not just the neighborhood, but an important corridor in Huntington. I think that's going to truly get things started. I hope anyway. That's just my ambitions, to see everything build up in that area and just continue to see some growth and some positive news for Huntington. And, of course, here it is. It's sports. Sometimes facilities don't help. Other times they do. And what I mean by that is I've seen communities pour millions and millions and millions into facilities for professional teams. College, it seems a little different, don't you think? Because it's money coming from you. Honestly, a lot of the money. Now, there are universities that have the money to build all the facilities they can handle without having to go to the donors, but let's be honest, Marshall's not that lucky. So the money that Marshall does raise, it's amazing to see it every time it happens, the way that the Marshall fan base and the Marshall donors have stepped up to help with the facilities. So off my baseball soapbox for the day, we're going to turn our attention back to the battle for the Bell, Marshall, and Ohio. It's coming up on Saturday. Jason Arkley is going to join us from the Athens Messenger. We're going to talk about this matchup with Ohio later on. Your phone calls are welcome. You can join the program by calling 877-420-TALK, 877-420-8255 to be a part of the Miller Lite phone lines. Miller Lite, hold true, great taste, only 96 calories. It is the original light beer. More on the way. It's The Drive, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
They're a typical, Ohio team. I mean, they're just, they're like clones. They're all just really, really good football players that know how to play the game. They're tough. They're physical, and they don't give up the big play, and they get lined up, and they just play. They're so well coached, and they play so hard, and they play really well.
We're presented by Huntington Federal Savings Bank. Paul Swann, your host for today's edition of The Drive, and it's Ohio week, and it's one of my favorite weeks because we get to talk to a range of experts, people who know the Bobcats, plus, okay, they're just not that far away, so it's easy to get a hold of some folks. Jason Arkley is joining us from the Athens Messenger, and it's Ohio Marshall Week, which maybe a few years ago, if you'd say that to football players on these squads, they know what that meant. We've had to educate everybody on both sides what this is all about.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. I one of the first things I did this week was kind of go down the roster and look for guys who were around for the last time these two teams played, and then I looked for guys in the southeastern Ohio area, especially down around Portsmouth and Ironton, and I came up with just one guy who really kind of knew what this rivalry was about on both sides of the river, and that's fifth-year offensive tackle Austin Pleasance, who's from Ironton, and he said this week, we've broken the series up, so I don't know if it still means as much to everybody, but it surely means a lot to that kid who again went to school at Colgrove just across the river there, and didn't get really recruited by Marshall, so he's always had a little chip on his shoulder when it came to this particular game, and I know he's fired up to to have this one back on the schedule. So there's at least one guy, and imagine if you got Doc Holliday and Frank Solich to say so off the record, they would admit, yeah, this is a game we want to win because they're so close. They're just like us. I don't know if there's any great love lost between the two sides. So it's, amongst the management of these two teams, that feeling is still very much there, and I'm sure both sides are stoking the fires this week for that.
Yeah, the players have been pretty quiet about it. Like, yeah, we don't know much about it. We know they're saying all the right things, but I mean, you look at this series. Last time these two teams met, Ohio gets the victory. Ohio leads the all-time series. True, Marshall has won 8 of the last 9 meetings in Huntington. Yes, 13 of the last 19 matchups overall. But Frank Solich, when he came to town, Frank started chipping away at that resurgent Marshall streak. I guess that's the best way to say it because Frank's been pretty successful against Marshall. Yes,
he has. 7 meetings now. This will be meeting number 8. Frank is Solich is 4-3. In the last since they created the Bell back in '97, there have been 15 meetings, and Marshall leads that segment of the series 10-5. But Solich has kind of, like you said, upended that. He's 4-3. And other Ohio coaches in that string are just 1-7. So he certainly added some bite back for the Bobcats in this series. And if you break it down a little bit further, Ohio's won 4 out of 5. So they've really done a good job of turning this thing around. And I know Doc Holliday has respect for Ohio in that they're always a tough out. I think only 2 of the games in the last 7 have been more than 1 possession games. Ohio got a big blowout at home. Marshall got a big blowout at home. And 21-10's 2 possessions, so the last meeting. But they have all been close for the most part, down to the wire kind of games. And I think we're going to see another one of those on Saturday. And Frank Solich will have his guys ready to play, and Marshall shouldn't assume things are going to go easy, just because they're playing at home where they've been so good over the years.
This is going to be a hard game to read because Marshall was not very good on offense. If you just look at the scoring touchdowns, they only got 1. So 7 points against Boise State held them to 14. And yet Doc Holliday still found things to point out that could have gone better for the defense, let alone things that needed to happen for the offense. Ohio, hard team to read because Pitt maybe not the best competition, and if Ohio was maybe in a better spot, Nathan Rourke, I understand he wasn't 100% in that game. I mean, this is a game that maybe Ohio could have won and maybe should have won if you look at it on paper at least. I liked Ohio's chances before the game played.
2 things about last week. One, Nathan Rourke was not 100%. He came down with an illness late in the week, Thursday, even as late as Friday night. They were unsure if he was going to be able to make the start. He went out there and played the whole way, said, it's no issue, I just need to play better. But he was clearly not at full speed. And the other thing about that game last week was Pitt won the game with their blitzes. They were able to blitz, get to the quarterback often, early, and the number of negative yardage plays really took Ohio out of any kind of sync it was able to find offensively. So those were the 2 things that stood out about the game. And the third is just missed opportunities. There were a half dozen to a dozen plays where Ohio had players in position to make a play, didn't make a play, dropped a touchdown pass, dropped an interception on the goal line that would have stopped a scoring drive, missed a sack in the end zone that would have resulted in a safety and turned the game around. There were a bunch of those little single one-off plays that, 2 or 3, 4 of those go the other way, and that's a drastically different ball game. I thought Marshall was phenomenal on this defense Friday night over in Boise, and they ran into some of the problems Ohio did in the second half offensively. So you've got the Herd needing a big bounce-back week offensively. You've got Ohio needing a big bounce-back week offensively. And which side is able to find some traction, I think, is going to go a long way to determining who wins this rematch or this series extension coming up on Saturday night.
Jason Arkley is joining us, the Athens Messenger, and you bring that up. This is a potential bounce-back game for both teams. It's an important game for both teams, even though it's not going to impact the conference races. But Marshall's picked to win the East Division. Ohio is pretty much the odds-on favorite to get to the MAC championship game. This could be Ohio's year. And you don't want to get into the season 1-2. I mean, this is an important game for both teams because all of a sudden, if you win it, you're 2-1. You're feeling a little bit better about yourself. If you lose this game, you're 1-2, and I don't know how Ohio feels about the rest of the season, but Marshall's still got to deal with Cincinnati before they get into Conference USA.
Yeah, both teams really did a good job this year setting up the schedule. Marshall's schedule you're well aware of. You go Boise, Ohio, UC, and again, those that's not Alabama, Ohio State, Auburn, but it's a good 1, 2, 3 stretch there against teams from the group of 5 conferences that are going to contend for league titles. Ohio did the same thing. They got Pitt, the defending ACC Coastal champ. They got Marshall, a strong Conference USA pick, and then Louisiana, a pick to win it in the Sun Belt. And then Ohio opens up with in MAC play with Buffalo and Northern Illinois, the 2 teams that were in the MAC championship game last year. So these first 6 games have been stacked up pretty good for Ohio in figuring out who they are and what they need to do to get where most folks think they need to be. I think from a desperation standpoint, I think it's a bigger game for Marshall simply because they're playing at home. Lots of people play bad at Boise. That's just a fact of college football. I know if it's the turf, it's the trip, if it's the team on the field, but very few teams are able to go out there and get a win. But Marshall, again, wins 83% of its games at home. And if they have a home slip-up, I think that is critical to their confidence level. Ohio, the one saving grace for them is they get to come back home no matter the outcome on Saturday night. But again, if you're 1-2, that's a drastically different feeling than if you're 2-1. And I know the respect goes both ways in this matchup Saturday, where whoever wins feels like we just got a great win against a good ball club, and the other team is going to be 1-2 and thinking about what kind of changes do we have to make to get things set with conference play coming up real quick.
Jason Arkley joining us, the Athens Messenger, and we've talked about Frank Solich a little bit. The man has longevity. He's 75 now, and he's probably feeling like he's 55. He could probably go another 20 years. He's really set a new standard at Ohio, and he's just a guy that keeps going and going and going, and there doesn't seem to be any slowdown in him.
No, and he doesn't have it exactly where he wants it, but he has instituted a program here at Ohio where they know the kind of guys they want to recruit year in, year out. They know the kind of system they want to run year in, year out. I heard Doc Holliday say earlier this week that when you play Ohio, it's like playing the same team every year, and there's some truth to that. That the system is in place. But Frank has remained energetic. He's remained hands-on. Physically, mentally, he's as sharp as he's been since he's been here. And when he decides to hang it up, he's going to do it on his terms. And honestly, I don't see that anytime soon. Maybe if they break through and win the MAC championship this year, maybe that changes his thinking. But he's an everyday guy. He's a long-term guy. He's not thinking anything else other than how do I get this team better this week? How do I get it better next week? What do we need to do to get this thing to where it should be or where I think it should be on down the road? So it's been remarkable. It's been consistent. You can look through all the numbers. This year he should become the winningest coach in MAC history. He has a shot if he sticks around for another couple years of becoming the winningest coach in Ohio history. And that you can pencil Ohio in for 7, 8, 9 wins almost every year now, regardless of the number of players lost, number of players returning. That's the baseline. That's the ceiling or the floor. And the ceiling year to year now comes down to 2 or 3 or 4 swing games throughout the year. And you could literally go on for hours about all the things he's done in terms of building the program, from facilities to roster management to support. But you just look at the wins and losses and you see what he's been able to do over the last 15 years.
What do you think it's about him that is it just that desire, I want to leave something lasting? Because I thought this was a great hire when it happened, and with the success he's had, he could have looked at other schools, maybe tried to leave Athens and go somewhere else, but it never feels like he's explored that he's a Bobcat for life now, it feels like.
I think at this point in time, that's very much the case. There was a time early in his tenure here, I don't know, year 3, year 2, year 3, year 4, where there were some whispers, some rumors, nothing quite panned out. And so yeah, he's kind of locked in. This for all intents and purposes, it's like his last head coaching job. And Ohio has been blessed to kind of not stumble into this hire, but to get the kind of mileage they've gotten out of it, to get everything that he promised he was going to do. He was going to make this program relevant. He was going to make it matter. He was going to improve it in all these different ways, and he's delivered on every facet. What he still wants, I don't know. I think a big part of it for him is the process, the showing up every day, the putting together the game plan every week with the coaches, the way he's able to still communicate and relate with players. I think all that stuff kind of keeps him going. And if he wasn't coaching, he's not the kind of guy that has like 10 hobbies and other things he can throw himself into. This, football has been his life, virtually his entire life, and he is happy to go to work where he's able to coach and not have to deal with too many of the extra things that go with being an FBS coach nowadays. And he's able to do that in Athens, where he's not hassled about commercials or endorsements or media shows or this or that. He's able to dial in and focus on being a coach and being the best coach he can be.
Jason Arkley is joining us from the Athens Messenger. Marshall will play host to Ohio coming up this Saturday. It's going to be hot, so get to the press box early. It's air conditioned, Jason. You know the drill. You've been here before. You know everything. Not as much as you probably want to be over these last few years, and that's something that I'm kind of curious about. I know they renewed the series. They're going to play this again here in a few years after they get through this set, but is this a game that fans maybe want to see every year, or this would be good if it was on the schedule every year? Because this is the 60th meeting between Ohio and Marshall. This is the opponent that Marshall has faced the most than any other program. So at least from the Marshall side, it makes sense because you had that familiarity with Ohio, and there is that friendly sense of a rivalry. It's not Miami, Ohio, and I know that. But as far as rivals are concerned, Ohio is the best option for Marshall when it comes to any school you would pick and say, hey, that's our rival.
Yeah, I agree. And I think from a majority of the fan bases on both sides, there is a lot of support for making this happen every year. I think from Ohio's perspective, Marshall is a certain level of program that is going to be, again, they're going to be a winning program most years. You kind of know what you're getting with them, and I think at this point, Marshall knows what it's getting with Ohio, a pretty solid team that if you're not minding your P's and Q's, they're going to come in there and beat you. So I don't think you're losing anything by scheduling this game. What's the one thing that you might miss, and I think there's been feelings both ways, both Ohio and Marshall on this, is if you're locking this 1 week in every season, then what other kinds of games are you missing out on along the way? Marshall's playing Notre Dame in 2022. Does not having that Ohio game locked in that particular year make it easier to negotiate that deal? And some of Ohio's home and home series with programs like Syracuse and Iowa State and Cincinnati, have those deals been easier to come by because they don't have that one extra game every year, a rivalry series that they're accounting for? I don't know. I suspect that's part of it, that both athletic departments want some leeway in going out and finding future opponents. But from a fan's perspective, it's such a close trip. I know being in Conference USA, the opportunity to get to road games is probably a lot more difficult than it used to be in the MAC. And this is a road game that the Marshall fans can get to a lot of the time. But so we got this one. We got the one next year, and then it's another 3 or 4 years off until 2025. So there might be new coaches, new ADs in place. Maybe there'll be a movement, after 2027 to make this an every year deal. But I think both athletic departments want some leeway in making those non-conference schedules. That's my best guess or my best answer for why this isn't an every year kind of deal.
Just know this. I know I should be rooting for the Conference USA team, but in 2022, I'm a big Bobcat fan when it comes to Florida Atlantic. Just so you know.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, I will be. Yeah, I mean, maybe I should be rooting for the Conference USA team. Maybe have that SEC Big Ten mentality where you root for all your conference mates. I don't know if that's really a thing, but Bobcat fan on the 3rd of September 2022. You know that. Just so if you need me for a column or anything.
All right, I'll keep that in mind. And I know Ohio fans are jealous because Marshall has UC coming into their place next week, right? And Ohio had a home-and-home series with Cincinnati, and UC was supposed to be coming back to Ohio next year, and instead punted on that and moved that game six years down the line. So they get the Bearcats on their home field, and Ohio was thinking they were going to do the same thing here real soon, but they're going to have to wait another half dozen years to make that happen. So I imagine some Ohio fans might be pulling from Marshall next week to upend the Bearcats.
It's 2 weeks from it's going to be on the 28th. But you know what? The Marshall's off on the 21st, so maybe Bobcat fans can root against Open and then root against Cincinnati. I'll take it. I love Open. I love Open and I hate Open all in the same time.
Oh yeah. Well, there are times, especially when you got the MAC schedule and you start doing the midweek stuff, that Open on a Saturday starts to look pretty good when you know you're playing again on Tuesday or Wednesday.
I'm glad you brought that up. I won't keep you much longer, but that's one thing that I look at and go, yeah, you're playing on Tuesday, but you're on ESPN. I mean, Marshall, Ohio's on Facebook this Saturday.
Yeah, as a guy invested down there, what is the feeling when you see your game this week coming up on Facebook? I'm trying to, the MAC's got all the ESPN Plus stuff, but putting it out there on Facebook just seems a little different, a little odd. And how did Marshall fans react to that?
I think it's a difficulty for a lot of fans because fans are used to being able to tune into traditional outlets like ESPN, to some degree CBS. But I think television is always a sticking point with a lot of Herd fans because they don't feel that the exposure is there for Marshall, and that's holding Marshall back. And I know there's a financial component to this, why this is the way it is. But Herd fans would love to be on ESPN more and less on Facebook. But, again, it's easy to get to Facebook for a lot of people. I think maybe it's an age divide as well. But me personally, I'd rather be on ESPN, ESPN2. But it's pretty cool that I can actually pull up the game on Facebook, just because I'm able to. I know how to do it, where some Herd fans maybe don't. But here's a point that's been brought up to me. It's hard for, say, a Herd fan who is out of the area to go to a sports bar or a restaurant that has televisions and say, hey, can you put up the Marshall game? Where's it at? And then they have to go and explain how to get to it.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that the MAC knows is going to happen, especially when you get to November. Their game's going to be on because oftentimes the MAC has that whole window all to themselves, whether it's Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. For instance, the anniversary of college football, the 150th anniversary, there's one game in the entire nation at night, and it's going to be Miami of Ohio at OU. So, yeah, it's odd. The MAC doesn't get a ton of money from their broadcasting deal, but they do get a lot of potential windows and national TV opportunities. Not on the main networks, but they're there, and you can find it and you can watch it, and so yeah, it's a trade-off, I guess. Dollars and eyeballs, right?
I'd rather have the eyeballs. I mean, the dollars are important, but give me the eyeballs.
Yeah, I think when you're trying to build your brand, that's TV speak, but build your brand and sell people on what you're about, then I think eyeballs is the better bet, and that's clearly a bet the MAC has decided to go deep on. Eyeballs over everything.
Joining us on the program, and he's going to be here in Huntington on Saturday, so be nice to him. Like I told everyone yesterday, be nice to Rob Cornelius. Jason Arkley joining us from the Athens Messenger. Do you hang out with him on a Saturday tailgate?
I know. We haven't done it lately. We used to ride together to some of the road games in conference play, especially. Yeah, you haven't lived until you spent a 4-hour car ride with Rob Cornelius and watch him work about 5 different electronic devices at once.
So you're going to have the Canadian flag. He said that's going to be flying at Jones C. Edwards Stadium. I don't know. About that.
There will be an Ohio tailgate group that everywhere they go, they take the Canadian flag. They put it up just below the Ohio flag, so they are easily visible and recognizable no matter what stadium they're at. They didn't do it just for Nathan Rourke, the Canadian-born quarterback for the Bobcats. They've been doing this for a number of years, but now with Rourke in play, it makes even more sense. But yes, there will be a tailgate group, and they will have a Canadian flag out there.
See, this is what I miss about this series every year. Jason Arkley is our guest, the Athens Messenger. For Herd fans that maybe want to spy on what the Bobcats are doing, what's the easy way to get to your stuff?
I go to the Athens Messenger AthensMessenger.com. Again, just be warned, we are one of those paywall sites. So, but if you like what you see, you can always subscribe one day for 99 cents. We've got different rates, all that kind of stuff. You can also find me on Twitter. I do try to be helpful and answer questions posed to me there, and you can find me on Twitter at Jason A. Messenger, Messenger. So those are probably the two best ways to check out the work and to get questions answered if you so desire.
Jason, look forward to seeing you on Saturday. Come on by. We have a stage show we do 3 hours before the game over at Gate C. So if you're going to be there 3 hours before the game. We're not on 3 hours, so we are only on 1 hour, but we're on for an hour, 3 hours out. Then we've got a concert. So we have fun. So come over on Gate C. I'm telling everybody in this as well. Just come hang out with us. We'll have fun. I can't vouch for the food though. I don't think we'll have any of that.
I will say this will be my fourth trip to Marshall for a game day, and I've yet to be accosted or harassed or abused by some of maybe the overserved fans there on a game day. So knock on wood, let's make it 4 for 4. And but I've had nothing but good interactions, and I will say if folks haven't been to a night game at Marshall, it is a legit big time college football experience, environment, loud, energetic, and it's what college football should be.
Jason, can't wait to see you. We'll talk on Saturday. Have a safe trip coming to Huntington, and I'll try to come find you in that Canadian flag before I go on the air. I want to see this.
All right. Good luck.
Thank you, sir. Jason Arkley joining us from the Athens Messenger. We will continue with today's edition of The Drive, presented by Huntington Federal Savings Bank on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
The Drive with Paul Swann. Marshall Athletic Director Mike Hamrick. He knows.
Paul's the best.
On ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Inside Herd Athletics with Marshall University Athletic Director Mike Hamrick. That is coming up next, followed by the Doc Holliday Show. It's all right here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. Thanks for tuning in to today's edition of The Drive. So, what do we got coming up tomorrow? High school football all across the tri-state. We're going to break everything down for you. We've got some big matchups. Also, our Kindred Digital Game of the Week. It's going to be Cabell Midland and Spring Valley. That's right. You can go to our Facebook page. You can go to our website, and you can watch the digital stream of that. Cabell Midland, Spring Valley. That's our digital game of the week. We've got one every week. All you have to do is check out our website for the time and information. All you have to do is go to WRVC.com. So we're going to take a quick break. We come back. We went a little long with Jason, but it was a fun interview, so I really didn't want to stop it. So when we come back from break, we'll get your phone calls in, 877-420-TALK, 877-420-8255 to be a part of the Miller Lite phone lines. Miller Lite, hold true, great taste, only 96 calories, the original light beer. More on the way. The Drive continues, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. Presented by Huntington Federal Savings Bank. Guests with Paul Swann appear via the Miller Lite phone lines.
Thursday night, NFL action back on your radio. That's right. We've got NFL action coming up tonight. It'll follow the Doc Holliday Show. 2 0-1 teams hoping to rebound after last week. I'm going to tell you right now, I think I like Carolina in this one. It's Tampa Bay and Carolina coming up tonight. We'll have that game for you. I think I'm going to take Carolina in this one over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm not going to do the full NFL schedule of picks. I might save that for tomorrow. We'll just go ahead and get this one now. But I do like. I'm going to take Carolina. I think that's what I'm going to go with tonight. So Carolina is going to be the winner for me tonight. We will go over the entire slate of NFL action tomorrow as far as the pick'ems are concerned. The only game that concerns me on Sunday will be the 49ers and the Cincinnati Bengals. Andy Dalton last week, 35 of 51, 418 yards, 2 touchdowns. John Ross, 7 receptions. Could have had more. Hang on to the ball, son. Hang on to the ball, young man. 158 yards, 2 touchdowns. The line is Cincinnati -2. That's your line right now. Over-under is 46 on this game. But the Bengals line is -2. What do you think? You feeling it? I'm kind of feeling it. I actually am feeling it, really. Just got to figure out a few things, and I think this team's going to surprise some people. I'm not going to say they're going to win the division, but if Baltimore's not the team to beat, then it's going to be tough. Because I think the Bengals can compete with them. But if Cleveland and Pittsburgh, if they can bounce back, then it's going to be a little bit tougher for any of these teams to claim the division title. It's going to be a fight, but I like the Bengals. I know it's just one game. We're talking one game. This does not set the season, but if the Bengals can win this against the 49ers and make it 1-1, win their home opener, I'm feeling pretty good. Really, I'm feeling really good right now. I haven't felt this good about the Bengals in a while, because then after that, they've got the Bills and the Steelers, both of those games on the road. Then they've got the Cardinals at home. Then on the road against the Ravens. Man, the schedule makers are not fans of the Bengals. Then the Jags, the Rams, and the Ravens all at home, and then at the Raiders. Then Steelers at home, Jets at home, then at the Browns. That'll be the trash talk game of the century, number 1, between me and my Browns friends. Are they really my friends? They're Browns fans. I'm looking at you, Gabriel Sellards. I'm looking at you. Show producer Gabriel Sellards, a Browns fan because his family has lied to him over the first 21 years of his existence and indoctrinated him. And you have a choice. Gabriel, you have a choice. You could be any fan of any team you want to be. You have a choice. Time to stand up for yourself, Gabriel. Tell your family no. You will no longer be a Browns fan. 2 matchups. I like the schedules. It's like this: the Browns, Patriots at the Dolphins, and then hosting the Browns. This is actually the last 4 weeks are it's almost the ultimate trash talk schedule for me, because I have friends that are Browns fans, and I have friends. Okay, let's put it this way. Everybody's a Patriots fan. I come to find out. It's like all my friends are Patriots fans. And then Dolphins. I've got a friend who's a Dolphins fan, so I can talk some trash here. She's also a Mountaineer fan, so I know you're looking at me like, wait a minute, Swan. How Gabriel's looking at me. Seriously looked at me like, wait a minute. Your friend is a Mountaineer fan and a Dolphins fan? Yeah, she's having a miserable season so far. Trust me, it's not good for her. But I'm going to have some fun with this a little bit. I'm not getting triggered, though. I've got a couple of people who are seriously triggered by the wins and losses. I'm a Bengals fan. I'm used to it. If they win, great. If they lose, okay. I'm going to go about the rest of my Sunday and do some laundry or something like that, because I just don't get wound up about it. I mean, years ago, maybe I might get wound up about it. No, not anymore. It's just, okay, hey, they won, great. They lost, okay, I got some laundry to do. I got to get ready for Monday. That's my NFL season so far. 21-20, losers against the Seahawks. I'm good with that. If I get to see some progress in week 2, I'll be super happy. I don't want a loss, but I'll be happy if there's progress there, because I think this is going to be a rebuild. This is going to be an interesting time. Of course, the Bengals, probably the second best defensive performance in the AFC North. Baltimore dropping 59 points, beating up on, I don't even want to say their name anymore. Poor Dolphins. Got 59 dropped on them. But Dalton, 418 yards, 2 touchdowns. He looked good. I need a little bit more out of John Ross. And when A.J. Green comes back, Ross and A.J. Green, pair them together, I'm totally excited for this. So we'll talk more. We'll talk more Bengals. They're taking on the 49ers. Of course, if you can't watch it, you can listen to it right here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. We'll have the game for you all season long. Now, I saw a report, and I'll go over it briefly, that AT&T and Disney might not be getting along right now. And that means you might be losing some ABC, ESPN-type channels off DirecTV. I'm looking at some of the reports and following multi-channel news that their carriage deal with AT&T ends, and some reports say it's set to end at the end of this month. And there's also some reports that are saying, look, no, this thing might go away Friday. So we're going to follow that story tomorrow, see if that's actually an issue we need to follow, because I might have to actually drop DirecTV if I can't watch my ESPN. I mean, let's be honest. If I lose my ESPN, I don't have use for DirecTV right now. And wisely, I did not buy the Sunday ticket. I did not pay for the Sunday ticket wisely. And I'm thinking about spending some money on the Center Ice package. I might have to rethink that now. If I'm canceling DirecTV, I have to get my hockey from elsewhere. Coming up next, we're going to have Inside Herd Athletics with Marshall University Athletic Director Mike Hamrick. I'm looking forward to that. Also, Doc Holliday Show. And then we've got Thursday Night Football right here at ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
WRBC Huntington, W227BS Huntington, your flagship home of the Marshall Thundering Herd and The Drive with Paul Swann, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.